Angela arrested again, but this time, it's different. Cameras weren't there to catch it. There was no dramatic build-up, no signature fight beforehand, no epic walk-off into the hotel lobby. This time, it happened in real life. No edits. No filters. Just a cold snap of reality hitting someone who's spent years treating TLC like her personal boxing ring. But now, the punches are coming back, and this round, they aren't televised. They're court-documented. The news hit like a gut punch to the fandom. Angela Deem, reportedly arrested again. Within minutes, social media went into meltdown. Twitter timelines flooded. Reddit threads doubled in size overnight. But it wasn't the fact that she was booked, it was the silence that followed. The same woman who once livestreamed her dental surgery couldn't be reached. Not one comment, no TikToks. TLC didn't tease next week's episode, because suddenly, they were releasing a formal statement. And if you know how this network operates, you know. Nothing says damage control like official words from TLC PR. Viewers were already divided about Angela. For some, she was the messy queen of don't care who told it like it is. For others, she'd long overstayed her welcome, becoming more aggressive, more cruel, more publicly unhinged with every season. But love her or hate her, no one expected this drop, not in this way. And now, people aren't just asking, what did she say this time? They're asking, what did they find in her car? Because allegedly, that's where everything started. Law enforcement sources haven't confirmed everything publicly yet, but insider reports suggest the arrest wasn't just a routine traffic stop. Something in the vehicle triggered escalation. Onlookers in the area filmed from inside restaurants. A few frames went viral. Angela, hair tied up, arms behind her back, yelling something indiscernible as she was placed in the back of a cruiser. Immediately, theories started flying. Illegal possession, suspended license, something related to controlled substances. Fans began piecing together timelines. She had been quiet online for over a week leading up to it. Unusual for someone who posts multiple selfies a day. And remember, Angela going dark on Instagram doesn't mean a break. It usually means something's brewing behind the scenes. Every time she's gone quiet before, something explosive followed. But this felt different. This time, it was like she knew what was coming. Like she couldn't meme her way out of it. And where was Michael in all of this? That question spread faster than the arrest headline itself. Because if Angela was spiraling again, the immediate thought wasn't court, it was marriage. How would Michael respond? Would he defend her? Would he finally walk? Or was this the scandal that finally gave him the out he's always been circling? Curiously, Michael's digital footprint remained completely untouched. Nothing, not even a vague quote story. His personal account stayed dormant, and while TLC's socials have shared generic catch-up content from previous episodes, there's been no mention of him either. The silence is deafening, not suspicious strategic, and then TLC posted the statement, short, measured, like they'd rehearsed it months ago. We are aware of legal developments involving a cast member. We are cooperating fully and will not comment further at this time. Translation, we're stepping back, and fast. It's not the first time they've done this. Remember when Jeffrey Paschal's case exploded? TLC made no sound until they quietly pulled him from the tell-all and retroactively began erasing his presence. Subtle, calculated, cold. Angela, though, is different. She's been a franchise staple for years. Their wildcard. Their guaranteed drama generator. If they're issuing a statement now, it's because things aren't just messy, they're legally explosive. And if history repeats itself, this may be the beginning of the network phasing her out too. Multiple fan accounts tried to intercept the narrative. Some defenders spun it as just another Angela moment being exaggerated by haters, but even those fans seemed nervous. There was no proof of overreach. No witnesses coming out to claim a misunderstanding. Just one solid anchor, she was arrested. That fact alone burned away all spin attempts. Because a messy cast member is good TV until they become a legal liability. Production insiders haven't said much, but few signs have leaked. This season was supposed to showcase Angela and Michael giving it one last shot. A final reckoning before deciding if they'd split for good or actually stay married. But now, rumor is, those scenes may never air. Editors are reportedly scrubbing parts of her footage while awaiting legal counsel. Sound familiar? If starting to look like Angela's in a timeout that might turn permanent. And here's the part that's got the fans spiraling. No bail information has surfaced. No confirmation of her release. No mugshot posted officially. The only images circulating are shaky phone videos captured by strangers. And in the middle of the speculation storm, one dark, boiling question festers louder than the rest. Did TLC already know something was coming, and were they just waiting for it to happen? Because if this didn't catch them off guard, if this was anticipated, we might not be watching a season arc fall apart. we might be watching the end of Angela's TV story before we even realize the final episode aired. Angela didn't just walk into the 90-Day Fiancé franchise. She stormed in, middle fingers metaphorically in the air, spitting out insults while declaring her undying love for a man halfway across the world. From her very first chaotic entrance, she wasn't just a cast member, she was a brand. Loud, unfiltered, impulsive, and impossible to ignore, Angela Deem became the fist-pounding face of every tell-all meltdown and the go-to villain for fans who loved to hate her or hated how much they loved watching her implode. But over time, that chaos stopped feeling funny and started feeling like something darker. Rewind to Angela's earlier seasons, when her relationship with Michael was still developing from long-distance phone calls to screaming FaceTime matches. Viewers were hooked. She didn't fake composure, didn't soften her voice, didn't play the network game of acting sweet for the sake of image. Angela was raw, rough, uncontrolled. Every red flag was a feature, not a flaw. And TLC leaned into it. Promos showed her yelling, lunging, crying, threatening. It was pure reality TV fire. She cursed out Michael. She threw her purse in front of hotel cameras. She screamed at his friends, his family members, even the elders at traditional Nigerian ceremonies. And the network didn't just tolerate it, they highlighted it. It became her trademark. When she famously shouted, "I'm an American," at strangers overseas, people didn't turn off their TVs, they quoted it. Memes were made, reactions posted. The more she exploded, the more people tuned in just to see what she'd do next. But buried behind that entertainment value was a pattern, and it started becoming harder to laugh at. There was the disturbing footage of Angela screaming at airport staff, the accusations of physical altercations, caught partially on camera, the way she cornered Michael emotionally, publicly promising love, while calling him names most couples wouldn't dare mutter in their darkest fights. Fans initially chalked it up to reality TV exaggeration syndrome. But those moments stopped feeling like scenes and more like repeated behaviors. And the headlines started stacking. Incidents that once felt like blips in a season started painting a larger picture. Her explosive outbursts felt less like dramatic television and more like warning signs that the show kept ignoring. Viewers began to peel back from the initial fascination and ask out loud, why is she still on air? By the time the narrative reached its fifth or sixth cycle, Angela storms off, Michael pleads, she returns, chaos resumes. People weren't entertained. They were frustrated. Comments changed from "God, Angela's wild" to "This is abusive. Why is she allowed back each season?" The tone of her screen legacy shifted. Maybe it was always there, under the surface, but people took longer to admit it. Even longtime defenders of her realness began hesitating. The storylines weren't evolving. The relationship wasn't growing. The outbursts weren't unpredictable anymore, they were guaranteed. Built in, expected, and a growing number of fans began to see it not as authentic chaos, but as deliberate escalation. A persona that thrived on explosions, because that's what kept the camera pointed at her. But if we zoom out past the screen and past the promotion, was this latest arrest really unexpected? There were clues, emotionally and psychologically, that things had been fraying for a long time. Angela's obsession with control wasn't just about her relationship, it extended to every part of the show. She interrupted tell-alls, bullied co-stars backstage, accused producers of manipulation when footage didn't serve her. The line between her on-screen behavior and her real-world decisions began to blur. And when people blur those lines long enough, they stop acting like the camera is a boundary and start living like they're untouchable. For Angela, it wasn't just about being on TV. It was about being the most watched, the most talked about, the main source of chaos. That's not just a character arc, it's a psychological pressure cooker that eventually bursts. You can only play the villain for so long before you become one in real time. And yet, behind every meltdown, there were moments of softness, glimpses of real pain. Her fears about aging, about trust, about abandonment. That's what made Angela confusing for a lot of fans. Some saw a wounded woman who didn't know how to manage her emotions. Others saw someone weaponizing every ounce of that pain for attention and dominance. Either way, it wasn't sustainable. This latest arrest didn't happen in isolation. It happened after years of on-screen battles, off-camera rumors, and a carefully curated pattern of defiance. The red flags weren't subtle. They were practically signposts. But for the longest time, the franchise let the story continue without interruption. Now that interruption has arrived, the kind that can't be edited into a segment or swept up in a promotional arc. And while some viewers are shocked, others are saying what no one wanted to admit earlier. This was never going to end clean. Not when someone's entire brand was built on refusing consequences. Not when the line between reality and performance was erased long ago. Maybe we weren't just watching Angela spiral across seasons. Maybe we were watching her build up speed to crash exactly like this. When Michael first appeared on our screens alongside Angela, the reaction was mixed, but mostly charmed. He was calm, respectful, soft-spoken. She was loud, brash, emotionally all over the place. The contrast was compelling. A 30 years younger Nigerian man dating a fiery American Mima with a nicotine habit and a short fuse. That's good TV. And in the early seasons, that's exactly how it was framed. Angela was tough but lovable, and Michael was patient to a fault. They laughed, bickered, flirted, and always seemed to circle back to some crooked kind of chemistry. But it didn't take long for that charm to rot. Their early visits showed cracks right under the surface. Angela would erupt at any sign of resistance, and Michael, terrified of losing her visa support, would fold. Her promise of being protective quickly morphed into public outbursts, jealousy over female friends, and rage whenever his phone pinged. Fans started noticing how often his eyes dropped while she yelled. Not as an equal arguing a point, but as someone trying not to provoke worse. It escalated fast. In one infamous scene, Angela snatched his phone, screaming about a suspicious social media interaction. Later, she'd weaponize her investment in the relationship, financial support, visa control, even whether or not he got to see her again, as leverage anytime she felt unheard. And every time Michael tried to speak up, she'd bulldoze the room. She claimed he was lying, that he wasn't loyal, that she was the only one trying. In a later episode, while video calling Michael, Angela accused him of cheating because he didn't answer fast enough. Her rationale: if you truly love someone, you never miss their call. It was the same circular logic that made normal conversations into minefields. A 2-second delay became disloyalty. Silence was betrayal. Disagreement equaled disrespect. The age gap became less of a fun fact and more of a weapon. Angela constantly reminded Michael she had been around and knew better. Cultural differences, brushed off. She refused to partake in local customs, laughed off traditional expectations, and scolded Michael's family for suggesting she should respect their norms. She approached his culture like a bad hotel she couldn't wait to check out of, loud, impatient, ungrateful. By the time her infamous surgery saga began, facelifts, gastric bypass, dental work, everything seemed to cement around Angela's need to control image, time, and body. And she expected Michael to praise everything without complaint. When he seemed slightly hesitant about her revealing photos, she exploded. When he asked for compromise, she called him selfish. The entire dynamic became one-sided in a way that made viewers deeply uncomfortable. Yet somehow, they kept coming back, even from across continents. Even after fallouts, screaming matches, and block numbers, fans were split. Was Michael playing the long game for a green card? Or were they trapped in a loop of emotional dependency, Angela needing to feel dominant, and Michael willing to surrender ground at any cost? One season revealed the depth of their digital battles. Angela had allegedly hired a private investigator. Why? Because she didn't trust Michael's phone habits. She believed he may have been cheating and justified the intrusion as self-defense. That proof mattered more than privacy. She'd go through his devices, make threats, lie in confessionals, accuse, and then hug him minutes later, forcing the cycle to reset. And every tell-all only made things worse. Grown adults watched, jaws dropped, as Angela cursed out Michael's friends, threatened to walk off again, and lashed out not just at him, but at production, the hosts, other cast members. It stopped being about two people in a dysfunctional relationship. It became spectacle. Disaster content with just enough tears to seem genuine and just enough rage to pull ratings. But the relationship never grew. They didn't meet in the middle, they met at extremes. Michael rarely got a voice. His attempts to reason were either edited down or cut off by Angela screaming over them. He'd say, "I need support," and she'd talk about betrayal. He'd say, "I want compromise," and she'd remind him who had the money, the platform, the upper hand. One episode showed Michael sitting quietly while Angela yelled in a hotel parking lot. He didn't argue. He didn't walk away. He just took it. And that's when the tide started to turn among fans. What once felt like a messy opposites attract story started looking a lot like long-term emotional control. Everyone watching could feel the weight behind his stillness, the way he smiled without his eyes. There was no balance, no safety, just cycles. By the time marriage happened, a small, low-energy gathering in Nigeria toward the end of their shared arc, viewers weren't celebrating. They were bracing for impact. Angela wasn't glowing. Michael wasn't glowing. It looked and felt like a box being checked, a storyline being completed. No joy, no ceremony, just obligation masked as progress. And as years passed with Angela living in the US and Michael still in Nigeria, the disconnect became impossible to hide. Immigration status updates stalled. trust deteriorated. Fights stopped being surprising and started being expected. The relationship had become one long inhale, holding on until something broke. We're here now because that break might have finally happened. Not with another explosive fight, but with something worse. Legal consequences, public fallout, and no clear cover story. Their dynamic wasn't just the background of the show, it was a slow implosion we were watching in real time. None of this came out of nowhere. The signs were always there. Big, loud, constantly rerun signs. But when something's dressed up as reality TV, it's easy to forget you're watching two real people slowly crash under the weight of their worst selves. And now that crash has hit the ground. It didn't start with flashing lights or crowds. Just a tense call to local authorities about a disturbance involving a known individual outside a Waffle House in rural Georgia. That's how the incident began, according to the sparse but increasingly circulated police documents. The officer responding didn't even realize who he was about to approach, just another traffic dispute at first glance. But by the time Angela's ID was in his hands and backup was called, it was already clear this wasn't routine. The initial complaint didn't name her. It simply reported someone behaving erratically outside a diner, allegedly yelling at someone inside their vehicle. When officers arrived, Angela was reportedly attempting to get back into her SUV, visibly flustered, sweating, fumbling for something in the glove box even after being told to step away. That behavior, caught on blurred bystander video, was described in the officer's notes as noncompliant and verbally aggressive. She was told to place her hands on the hood. She refused. Screamed something about being on TV, how they can't do this, and claimed she was just trying to go home. When the officer opened her door, that's when everything shifted. Law enforcement found multiple prescription bottles, none in her name. The official report cites unidentified pharmaceuticals in a small zippered pouch tucked into the back seat pocket, along with loose pills stuffed in a fast food bag. No organizing tray, no labeled medicine dispensers, just chaos, scattered, hidden, unexplainable. Angela reportedly began yelling over the officer's shoulder, drowning out any questions with statements about her health, stress levels, and how this is going to get blown up because of who I am. What tipped the booking from concern to arrest wasn't just possession, it was suspected tampering. Allegedly, she attempted to block the officer from securing the bag, then tried to clean up the floor of the car while standing outside. Her fingerprints, along with a smear of neon pink lipstick, were noted in the report as evidence of deliberate interference. Law enforcement classified it as obstruction and suspected tampering with material evidence. Angela was arrested on the spot for obstruction of a police investigation and for possession pending verification of properly prescribed medications. She claimed it was her daughter's medicine. She also refused a roadside sobriety test. Blood was drawn at the station under a standard post-arrest warrant, and here's where things cracked open. By evening, police had already confirmed the individual in custody was Angela Deem. TMZ ran with it before the county website had even gone live with the report. Fan blogs lit up. The only way this wasn't explosive news was if your internet was down. Inside TLC HQ, according to production whispers, panic quietly unfolded. Angela had always been a loose cannon, but they'd managed it before. Fights could be edited or softened in post. Crude jokes could be bleeped. Rage could be contextualized with backstory. But a criminal charge in real time, with cameras nowhere nearby and phones catching the aftermath, that was different. That wasn't Friday ratings fuel. That was legal risk. Producers started pulling files. Segments scheduled for finals were suddenly back on the edit table. Angela's scenes were re-examined. One production team member, speaking anonymously, said, "We all knew she was unpredictable on set, cussing out PAs, storming off, but no one thought she'd take it past what we could manage. This wasn't like the tell-all blow-ups. This was real." Off camera, Angela's behavior had reportedly been shifting for months. She wasn't showing up on time. She wasn't cooperating with notes. Her phone was often off during heavy filming days. And despite the filters and flashy lives, mood swings were becoming common knowledge among crew. "Everyone walked on eggshells," said another insider. "You never knew if you'd get playful Angela or full-scale nuclear Angela. You just prayed there weren't cameras rolling when it flipped." TLC found itself in a corner. Lose Angela, lose legacy drama, keep her with charges public, and advertisers start backing away. Their next move had to be carefully planned. They issued a second tighter statement late in the week, clarifying they were monitoring the situation closely and would take appropriate production steps in accordance with legal proceedings. That kind of language usually precedes a quiet blackout. Scenes that had already aired would remain, but moving forward, maybe not. Angela herself was released the following morning on bail. No mugshot was posted officially, but the video circulated had already done enough damage. Her team refused public comment. She didn't return to Instagram. Her daughter briefly posted a story asking for privacy during a very serious time, then took it down after fans flooded her comments with speculation. Behind the scenes, cast members were whispering. A few sent subtle shade via memes. Others said nothing, terrified of being dragged into drama that had gone beyond television. There would be no laughs this time. No TikTok recaps with funky music, no snarky soundbites. This wasn't a moment. This wasn't just Angela being Angela. This was real, real charges, real consequences. And for the first time in a long time, real silence. As the dust from Angela's arrest began to settle, the conversation shifted. Not away from her, but deeper into her. Fans and bystanders turned from gossip to guessing. Some wondered aloud if addiction was the real story behind the chaos. Others brought up years of explosiveness framed as entertainment. Was it all always this dark, or did we just stop seeing the signs? You can't scream on camera, threaten your husband, throw punches at producers, and walk off five tell-alls without people asking questions eventually. For years, Angela's behavior was packaged as meme-worthy meltdowns, but now, those same clips are being replayed with a different tone. Less amusement, more concern, maybe even guilt. Whispers of instability aren't new to longtime viewers. There have been moments, emotional outbursts that felt too real, paranoia over other women that spiraled into full breakdowns, claims about medical conditions, stress, menopause, trauma. Time and again, Angela framed her volatility as part of her charm or the result of triggers. People believed her, or at least gave her space to act out, because that's what she always did. But this time, even her defenders are quiet. Addiction speculation ramped up immediately after reports included mention of unmarked pill bottles. Officially, nothing's confirmed. But the presence of loose, unprescribed medication gave people a new lens to reinterpret old footage. Emotional highs and aggressive lows. Chaos followed by moments of withdrawn murmuring. Impulsivity, poor judgment. Screaming followed by sobbing. The cycle played out too many times to count. Still, others pushed back. Addiction rumors are lazy assumptions often made about women who step outside emotional norms. Was she out of control? Yes. But does that equal substance abuse? Not necessarily. There's a difference between being difficult and being dependent. And if we assign addiction to every woman having a public meltdown, we end up bypassing accountability or nuance. So then, what is the truth? Fans disagreed, some leaned on empathy. She needs help. She shouldn't be on the show, she needs support. Someone should have stepped in already. Others laughed it off, posted memes, continued to roast her like nothing had changed. Then there was the third wave, pure condemnation. She's always been abusive. How did TLC let it get this far? This isn't new, it's who she is. That last group wasn't wrong to ask how we got here. Because it's not just about Angela anymore. It's about the system that kept rewarding her behavior. For years, TLC turned Angela's volatility into must-see TV. Her fights became promo reels. Her outbursts made headlines. Her meltdowns translated to virality. She was the kind of cast member networks dream of always doing the thing that gets a reaction. Until suddenly, the reactions stopped feeling funny and started hitting uncomfortably close. We've seen the same arc before. Reality TV star spirals. Fans turn, network backs away slowly. But in Angela's case, what stands out isn't just her spiral, it's how long she was allowed to whirl. Season after season, even as behavior escalated, she was repackaged and reinvited. What's TLC's role in her unraveling? Did they enable her by giving her constant screen time while knowing she was emotionally unstable? Did they frame her breakdowns as entertainment while watching the wreckage build up when cameras stopped rolling? Did their silence allow for a fantasy edit that kept consequences she deserved far away from public accountability? It's a fair, uncomfortable question, and one the network has not answered. Even now, TLC hasn't acknowledged that any of her past behavior may have signaled more than just poor judgment. No mention of boundaries, policies, or warnings. No statement about cast member wellness. The only time anything has changed is when the public can see the consequences, when the arrest hits headlines, when it's unignorable. But maybe we all failed a little here. How many times did fans celebrate her insults and clapbacks without asking if they came from a healthy place? How often were people more focused on how memeable Angela was than how she might actually be doing? It's easy to say, she's the villain, deal with it. It's harder to admit that cheering on a meltdown is only fun until it stops being fictional. So where does she go from here? If she comes back to the franchise, it can't be more of the same. The Angela show isn't sustainable anymore unless she's ready to pivot hard into self-awareness, growth, therapy, maybe even rehab. If it's not a redemption arc, it's re-traumatizing for viewers and could turn dangerous for her. Again. And you can't redemption arc a person without their consent. Angela would have to want that kind of change, not just for the cameras, but when the cameras are off. And everything we've seen so far says she's not there yet. Or maybe, in her mind, admitting anything's wrong feels like surrendering. That she's terrified of what she looks like without the persona. But here's the quiet truth no one's saying out loud. She's not well. Whether that's medical, emotional, addiction, or systemic dysregulation from years of public feedback loops, we don't know. But it's no longer theatrical. It's dangerous. Not just for herself, but for her marriage, her family, the people around her, the crew. It's not fair to reduce her to an outburst counter anymore. Something deeper is breaking, and the world is watching that break in real time. So what happens next? If she's dropped from the franchise, will anyone help her behind the scenes? Or will she fall off into the same post-reality obscurity so many unstable stars have before her? We may love to watch a character fall apart on screen, but we rarely stick around to see if they ever learn how to get back up. Michael's silence said more than any statement could. Not a single word, not a quote reposted, not even a passive-aggressive emoji reaction. For a man who spent years defending Angela through every insult, every public humiliation, every on-camera ambush, his complete shutdown in the wake of her arrest was the loudest he'd ever been. No Instagram comments, no live sessions, no digital trail whatsoever. People went digging, desperate to find even a hint of his reaction, but if there was one, it was buried. And for once, there wasn't even a please understand from him. Because the reality is, when Angela got arrested, Michael stopped being her husband in the public eye and started becoming something else, the survivor of her storyline. And fans noticed, fast. Until now, every time the Angela storm gathered, Michael stood beneath it, sometimes by choice, sometimes because he didn't know how or wasn't legally able to leave. But this time, when chaos cleared, Michael was nowhere in sight. Even accounts tied to fan clubs in Nigeria quietly changed profile bios. One even removed Michael and Angela from their name completely. His silence isn't passive, it feels calculated, and maybe, for the first time, protective, because when Angela went down, she didn't drag him with her. That wasn't always a guarantee. Most of his screen presence was built around enduring, adapting, or strategically folding to Angela's unchecked personality. He was expected to grin through red flags and let public speculation pile on his motives. He was used, reframed, even mocked, yet his response to her arrest was nothing short of complete detachment. Emotionally, digitally, and maybe legally. Meanwhile, castmates began to stir, not with statements, but with selective petty energy. One posted a gif of someone tossing tea and quietly wrote, "Been waiting." Another liked several fan tweets criticizing Angela's past behavior at tell-alls. A former cast member reposted a clip of herself getting verbally attacked by Angela with the caption, "Was this the last time she should have been on?" Nobody named her outright. But the tone wasn't subtle. The shift in commentary was stark. For years, many 90-day stars either feared clashing with Angela or tolerated her outbursts to avoid conflict, especially on tell-alls. She was known to interrupt, overtalk, insult, and steamroll any moment that wasn't about her. But now, the same cast that once tiptoed around her was suddenly finding bravery in her absence. It's what always happens. People find their voices after the power dynamic shifts. That fear, that tension, that's what kept Angela insulated for so long. But once the shield of TLC editing, viewer engagement, and social influence started cracking, people stopped protecting her ego. And maybe the biggest shock? So did TLC. Behind the scenes, production sources reportedly confirmed what many suspected. Upcoming promotional slots tied to Angela have either been frozen or restructured. She was expected to appear in upcoming special features. Those invites have allegedly been revoked. Plans to offer her a spot on the next round of The Last Resort? Quietly slimmed down to a less than likely, we're still evaluating. Because despite what Angela's screen legacy wants fans to believe, even the loudest personality can go quiet if the consequences become bigger than the views. Her social media presence collapsed into total darkness within 48 hours of the arrest hitting headlines. No live streams, no number Angela breaks your truth TikToks, not even the usual shade thrown through unrelated quotes. One cryptic heart emoji story appeared and disappeared just hours later. That was all we got. It's eerily intentional. This isn't Angela being emotional and impulsive. This feels like someone who's been told not to post. Whether by an attorney, by family, or even by TLC's legal department, she's clearly been warned that one wrong sentence could become a link in a courtroom. But the absence online doesn't mean the audience has forgot. If anything, it's poked a hole in the illusion, because Angela has always performed her drama, always leaned into it, always doubled down. So what does it mean when she can't, or won't? Is this the true downfall? Or just the part in the reality arc where the network pulls the lead character off stage for damage control and sets up a redemption chapter no one asked for? The sad truth is, it's hard to say. With Angela, finality has never stuck. She quits the show every season. She screams about leaving Michael every second fight. She storms off tell-alls only to return moments later, Mike still clipped to her shirt. So even now, with an arrest on record and a career cliff slipping beneath her, fans aren't fully convinced it's over. They've seen her rise back before. They've watched TLC forgive worse from other stars if the demand is still there. They know the network sometimes gambles on controversy, but here's what's different now. The appetite isn't what it used to be. She once commanded attention. Now she mostly stirs concern. Her segments used to trend. Now they trigger backlash. Viewers who once fed on her chaos now scroll past it, exhausted. And that fatigue, more than any arrest or suspension or scandal, is what might finally end it. Because once a reality star loses the audience's curiosity, there's nothing left to monetize. Angela's story was loud, messy, addictive. But maybe, this time, it isn't coming back. And maybe that silence, online, on screen, even from Michael, isn't just temporary. Maybe it's the first real ending we've ever gotten from her. Angela Deem built her entire reality TV persona on three things: volume, volatility, and visibility. For years, it served her well. She didn't filter her thoughts, didn't backpedal after outbursts, and never apologized, at least not sincerely. Her outrage was the brand. Her breakdowns were episodes. Her chaos wasn't the price she paid for fame, it was the fame. But now, for the first time in her reality TV career, silence is the product. And that silence has weight. TLC is in an impossible position. Angela isn't just any cast member. She's a known face, yes, but she's also a lightning rod for criticism, legal attention, and now, liability. The network's instinct has always been to protect the story, not the person. That means crafting arcs, trimming footage, and keeping cast on just long enough to milk engagement without risking PR disaster. But arrests hit differently, especially when real allegations, obstruction, illegal possession, officer interference, don't pair well with primetime. Behind the scenes, producers are scrambling. Angela's footage for the unreleased season reportedly exists, but there's hesitation over whether TLC will air it. If she enters a legal battle, or these charges escalate, they may shelve her entire arc. Broadcasting someone under suspicion who can't speak publicly and who already polarizes audiences could backfire. Hard. If Angela stays quiet legally, a plea deal is the most likely path. She's not expected to contest heavily. Most reality stars in her position avoid open courtrooms unless absolutely necessary. A negotiated plea could keep her out of jail, reduce fines, and potentially earn her another shot at rebuilding without major prison time. But a record is still a record. And TLC, they're watching every detail unfold, lawyers standing by. Producers might consider one of two directions. Either Angela gets cut entirely, quietly, respectfully, stripped from future reunions and spin-offs, the franchise moving on with tighter contracts and vague commentaries. Or they wait, let the noise die, give it time, then bring her back for one big redemption moment, the type where cast members cry, say, "I was in a bad place," and vow to change paths. That move won't be for her. It will be for ratings, but the pressure is very real. More voices are calling out TLC, not just for casting Angela, but for enabling the antics that led to this, for turning trauma, fights, and meltdowns into memes. They're being criticized for editing abuse into entertainment, publishing scenes that were clearly red flags, and letting the storyline stretch long after the audience stopped cheering. And perhaps the most devastating truth of all, Angela turned into exactly what producers wanted her to be. And now that it's caught up to her, nobody wants accountability. Not publicly. This is the hard lesson of reality fame with no filter. When someone spends years receiving applause for the worst parts of themselves, how are they supposed to know when to stop? The same shows that reward bad behavior with more screen time often abandon their most volatile stars the moment consequences stop being entertaining. Fame without correction becomes a runaway train, and Angela's been riding it at full speed for years. Now, the brakes are screeching. Fans feel mixed. There's pity, sure, because watching someone unravel isn't exactly a comfortable experience once it stops being fiction. But there's also exhaustion. The cycle of Angela explodes, Angela apologizes, Angela returns, doesn't hit the way it used to. For many, it's not edge of your seat anymore, it's old. The reputation she once weaponized is now chasing her, faster than the franchise that built it can keep up. Does she deserve another chance? That's subjective, but what's undeniable is this. Where Angela goes from here isn't about love, loyalty, or another story arc. It's about law, recovery, management of reputation in a country where mugshots go viral before facts are even confirmed. If she wants redemption, real redemption, it has to start without a camera, with court dates, not confessionals, because the version of Angela that exploded into our lives across seasons, she's not sustainable. Not legally, not emotionally, not on a network that already has PR wounds from previous scandal-plagued cast members. If she's coming back, it better be with more than another fight waiting. Until then, the door doesn't look closed. But it finally looks serious. And as the credits roll on this chapter of Angela's controversial run, one truth still hangs in the air. We watched it all happen. We laughed, reposted, argued, defended, and condemned her. But we saw the decline, and no one, not even the producers, put a stop to it. So if this is the end of the Angela storyline, it's not a twist, it's a warning. Fame, without limits, without correction, without care, ends here. And if you think Angela's fallout is shocking, wait till you hear the secrets TLC doesn't want you to know.